I decided to go to London to ask questions about life in London to a female chemical engineer and a computer science student studying at King's College London.
Really looking forward to it.
I have no idea how the interviews are going to be like, how my journey is going to be like. I'm so excited and anxious at the same time. And I've never taken the train to go to London. This is my first time. I'll let you know how I get on, how I like it. Just to let you know, I met Khaled Hosseini, who's a writer, one of the most famous writers in this world, here in London in 2018, and I got his autograph as well. I had the opportunity to ask him a question at the end of the evening, but I was stupid at that time, so I haven't asked anything. The first person I'm going to ask questions to is Claudia, and she has been kind enough to invite me to her house, which means I'm able to show you how a London house looks like.
Hi, welcome to my crib.
Bog. Tell me about yourself.
My name is Claudia. I am a chemical engineer. I'm 23 years old and I used to study at the University of Nottingham, where I did masters in chemical engineering. I'm from Napoli and I currently live in London.
What area do you currently live in London?
So I live in Southwest in Putney.
Where did you live before moving to London?
I lived in Nottingham. Before that I lived in Saudi Arabia.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I lived in Saudi Arabia, in Jeddah. Before that I lived in Italy, and before that I lived in like Mozambique and some random places.
What are differences between Nottingham and London?
London is just huge. Like, you can find literally anything you ever want in terms of entertainment, having fun, food. You just find gems everywhere. Nottingham's a lot smaller, but for the student experience I reckon it's much better, and obviously it's so much cheaper.
What about differences between Saudi Arabia and London?
Everything. I mean, Saudi is very it's very rich. It's a very rich country, so when you just walk around, it's like the roads are huge, everything is so big, everything is kind of like American style, and like the houses are massive. Every house has like a pool, you know. The weather is very, very hot. London has like much smaller houses, but I feel like it has a lot of a more real sense to it, like it's real life, compared to Saudi, where it's just kind of like everything is so grand, you don't even feel like you're living in a real life. It's like a bubble.
Is there any specific reason why you decided to live in London and not in some other city in the UK?
I've always wanted to live in London, to be honest, since I was like very young, so that was kind of like my aspiration. I just always felt like living in London would give me the most opportunities to meet the most people, to do the most things, so yeah, that's why I came here.
Have you ever thought of working as a chemical engineer in Italy?
Yeah, actually, I was looking at some jobs in Italy as well, but there just aren't as many opportunities, I think. And I think it would be a bit hard for me because I've realized that I need some sort of certification that maybe I wouldn't be eligible to do it in the same way in Italy. But I did look at like masters that were in industry, like in Milan, because we have really good universities in Italy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so probably not anytime soon.
What's your typical day as a chemical engineer?
A lot of Excel, a lot of calculations. So I think in general, the most important part of my job is to understand the safety of what we do.
Yeah.
So anything that I do, it has to be safe, and I kind of look at how to take care of our assets, like my current role is in operations, so if something goes wrong, I have to fix it, or if I have an issue, I have to optimize it. And in general, it's just a lot of calculations and understanding the risks behind anything we do, so that the operations are safe and no one gets hurt, obviously, or the environment.
Can you tell me about your living expenses, including rent, bills, groceries, leisure, and transportation?
Okay, so obviously I'm not doing a lot of transportation at the minute. Groceries, it really just depends on where you shop. Like Lidl just opened, so that's very cheap. And across the way there's Waitrose, so I think you can just make a choice. Leisure is pretty expensive as well. Like I would definitely expect to spend like 200 or something on a weekend out. It's pretty expensive, especially if you go to like bars. Obviously you can find like cheaper things, but 200 if it's like a really good weekend for me. The good thing is there's something for everyone. Like some weekends I can spend like £50, or some weekends I can spend more, but my £200 to some people would be like nothing, because they might spend like £1,000 a weekend. But yeah, in general it is pretty expensive. Is it worth it? Most of the times.
Taking advantage of this opportunity, because you might, leave London to live somewhere else.
Exactly. So it's
and never come back here.
Exactly. Rent compared to Nottingham, I'd say it's almost like double. It's pretty expensive. I pay quite a lot as well because my room is pretty big. I can show you guys my house if you want. This is just a bathroom. It's like the tiniest bathroom you ever see. I swear to God, it's like so small.
It's cute though.
It is pretty cute, and I share with the girl there. And then this is my room, just the biggest one in the house.
Yeah, it looks really nice.
Thank you. And the view is pretty good. You can see the river, and like you can see the boat races when they're on, and the pub. And then and a room at the entrance.
Yeah.
So there's 6 people in total.
6 people?
Yeah, 6 people in total. Right now there's only 4 of us though.
Oh, okay.
And this is my living room.
Yeah.
And my kitchen. Yeah, this is a bathroom. And
Which one do you use?
yeah, I can use either, but mainly the one near my room. And then there's 2 more rooms up there, very weird. And then there's a bathroom outside actually. Yeah, so this is the garden, the barbecue, ping pong table, and a really weird toilet outside.
And do you use this one?
Oh yeah, definitely. My housemate had COVID. And
Okay.
both of the bathrooms were out of use, and we all had to use outside bathrooms.
Oh, that's good.
But yeah, this is it.
How did you find this house?
I just went on spare rooms. My friend just said, oh, just go on there. And then I just found this. Yeah.
3 pros and 3 cons of living in London.
Pros, you can, honestly, as I said before, you can find anything you ever want. Activities, food, like fun, anything. However, that comes with the fact that it's so big. Like it can take you like up to an hour just to get to somewhere that's still in the same city. Pros, you can meet so many people. There are honestly just infinite people that you can meet. I guess a con is that it could be a bit hard to meet people. Like for example, I went on spare rooms and just kind of took a chance on my housemates. It was a good chance. Another con is that it could be quite expensive. I think the best thing about it is that you'll just never get bored.
Did you ever get bored in Nottingham?
I wouldn't say I got bored, because I feel like I had like a lot of my friends, even from the Italian society. It was great. But I guess it can be a bit repetitive. You always go out to the same places, always the same bars. It would be very hard for London to get repetitive.
How are people in London?
Mostly they're quite nice, like very friendly, very like outgoing. I feel like everyone is a bit in the same boat, in the sense that I guess it can get maybe lonely if you don't know anyone. So everyone understands that feeling, and everyone is quite open to like finding new friends. Sometimes people can be a bit like doing their own thing. It's not a bad thing. Yeah, you just have to kind of look for the opportunity. Like in Nottingham, it's just handed to you. But here, I guess it can be a little bit harder to meet people, but when you do, it's really fun.
Someone has never been to London before. Where would you take him or her first?
Probably like to Richmond Park or something like that, or to a food market. One of my personal favorites is Camden.
What do you think is the best place to eat in London?
My favorite is probably Borough Market. They have the best donuts I've ever tried from Bread Ahead Bakery.
Do you have any suggestions for people who want to study, live, work in London?
I guess just be proactive.
Are you happy in London? I guess you are.
Yes, very happy.
From what you have told me. But what's the main reason? Is it because you've always wanted to live in London and you achieved this dream of yours?
Yeah, exactly. It was my dream, and like now I feel like I'm finally like living my dream.
You achieved everything you wanted, like you became a chemical engineer, you live in London, everything at the age of 23. Have you ever thought of living somewhere else in the future?
Maybe Canada, Italy, definitely. For the near future, I really just hope I stay in London.
Do you find the food that you want, especially good quality Italian food? Do you find them here?
This was, I guess, one of the biggest things difference from Nottingham. You just walk down the street, like you can walk 5 minutes down that street and there are probably like 10 Italian places that sell literally Italian food that you could probably only order online if you lived in Nottingham. Like, it's amazing in terms of that, like literally amazing, yes.
How come you ended up going to Saudi Arabia? Is it because of a placement?
No, so I lived there for 5 years during my high school. So my dad is also an engineer. So that's why I feel I've lived like in a lot of places. I lived in Mozambique, lived in Bolivia, like just a lot of random places because of my dad.
You haven't done high school in Italy, you've done it in Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
That's cool. And what subject have you done in Saudi Arabia? Like, you know how in Italy we have liceo artistico, liceo scientifico. What did you do in Saudi Arabia?
I went to an international school. It was a British school, so it was pretty much the British curriculum. So I did IGCSEs, which is GCSEs but international. And then I did IB, which is International Baccalaureate, and that was for the last 2 years, so kind of A levels, but you pick 6 subjects and at different levels. So higher level I took math, physics, chemistry, which would be kind of the equivalent of like liceo scientifico, I guess.
That's pretty much it. Thank you so much.
Bye. Ciao ciao.
I came to Waterloo to interview my second interviewee. Tell me about yourself.
Hi, so I'm Ashik, I'm 20, I'm a third year undergrad student at King's College London,
Studying?
studying computer science.
You're nervous.
I'm not. Quanti anni ho? E poi che cosa studio? Quindi adesso facciamo tipo le risposte brevi. Ci sta? Ciao.
How long have you been living in London and why this city?
So I've been living in London for about 7.5 years now. I moved mainly to the city because of my dad's work, really. I was really young at the time back then. Yeah, that's mainly the reason why myself and my family moved here.
Tell me about your monthly living expenses for
Right.
a single person, including rent, groceries, leisure, transportation,
Okay.
bills.
Okay, so as a student who lives with his parents, okay, we live in a house with 3 rooms. We've got 2 bathrooms, one upstairs and one downstairs. We've got a garden in the backyard. It really depends from the area. So there's certain areas where the rent is really cheap compared to others. So where I live, which is in East London, the average rent for a house like that is about £1,600, going up by a couple of hundreds, but that's really about it. It's fairly cheap compared to the average rent of the entire city.
What about grocery?
I'm not really informed about that. Let me call a friend actually. Oh, quanto spendi al mese per la spesa? Tutto, pure alcolici. Ok, fratello, saluta YouTube se vuoi, saluta YouTube. Ciao fra, sentivo. Right. It's about £120. The guy who I just called, he's a single person living in Manchester. So I'm not going to give you 120 as an exact figure. In London, you can count that as a little bit more. So I'm going to say a couple of tenors up and down. So make it between £100 and £150.
Yeah, see, come on, though. Come on.
So about transportations for a student, for a university student, so an 18 plus student, you can get some perks. You can buy certain travel cards between different zones in London. There's about 8 zones if I'm not mistaken. You can get certain perks, so you can get a 10% discount. For example, if you want to travel from zone 2 to zone 3/4, which is my old case. Right now I've got include zone 1, which is much more expensive. I used to pay £75, but I realized with the COVID situation and everything that you don't go to your uni every day, so it's probably cheaper to pay your daily fees if you don't go to a place regularly.
What are the cheapest areas to live in London?
The cheapest place to live in London, I think, is Bexley, which is in South London. Then comes Croydon. Towards the east, which is where I'm personally from, Barking and Dagenham, Redbridge. These are cheaper areas, but the problem with them is that usually they might be disconnected a little bit in terms of travelling links to the city centre. So it really is up to one's financial situation and what one can really afford.
Would you say they are like isolated?
Yeah, so certain places are isolated just because there aren't many transportation links that go all the way there. So for example, Croydon, you can only get there realistically with the tram, which is like, you know, it's a special case.
What jobs have you had when living in London?
I think my first ever work experience was in a pharmacy and I was like 16. Then I started tutoring, started with kids in primary school, so SATS level. Gradually started teaching GCSE and A-level students. Other than that, I've been working with a startup who actually has their services on Amazon Web Services. They sell a data warehouse on the cloud. I think it was probably the most significant work experience for me working with them.
What jobs are available for students living in London?
So a lot of people in London, general students between the age of 18 to 24, 23, they work in cafes and in restaurants really. A lot of people are a little bit more lucky than others and they work in places in line with their career ambitions. But I guess for that, you need a mix of both luck and good preparation and hard work, which is not really the case for a lot of people, just because a lot of places hire only if you've got a degree. So you've got to be lucky and good at the same time.
So what are jobs available for people who don't speak English and don't have qualifications?
Yes, so you can work as a cleaner, as a warehouse worker. There's still a lot of jobs still require you to have some minimum qualifications. For example, to be a security guard, you still got to have your blue badge on the shoulder. I don't even know how that's called, but you've got to like pass your security clearance, have a minimum language requirement. A lot of places ask for different things, but jobs available to a lot of people are low paid and are still in demand in a lot of places.
3 pros and cons of living in London.
Nightlife, concerts, and transportation links. 3 cons, right? Mm-hmm. Right. Expenses. A lot of things are expensive. So rent, etc., bills, you name it. Also, in some places and some areas, you've got to watch your back if you're walking at night. Also, there's a lot of awkward situations that happen in the underground where you just have to keep staring at someone's feet because you're not allowed to speak in the underground apparently in London. So
yeah. Stai bene. Pronto? Tell me about your uni life, what course you do, daily expenses, and if you had any internships or placements, and your plan for the future, like if you want to do a master's or something like that.
I'm finishing off my 3rd year as a computer science undergrad here at King's College London in the Waterloo campus. The experience has been great. A lot of different opportunities you get from here. So about the expenses, I guess apart from obviously the normal tuition fees, you've got your travelling fees, you've got about your own books, but pretty much that's normal across all universities. Plans for the future, I'm planning to do my master's next year, still here. It's going to be the data science master's, really looking forward to it. Questo non c'ha paura.
No.
Lo posso toccare?
How are people here in London?
Oh, right. So people in there's a lot of mix in terms of people in London. There's a lot of extrovert and introvert people. There's a lot of mix. So you can find pretty much people of any sort of style, but you can pretty much find all sorts of personalities around.
You lived in Rome before, and now you live in London. Can you compare both of them?
Weather-wise and food-wise, nothing really beats Rome. I still think it's the best city in the world. Historically speaking as well, there's a lot of, historic places, monuments. London is like a city with opportunities. You've got to come here, obviously, with a mentality of one person that wants to achieve things in life. Whoever works hard is well rewarded in a city like London.
Do you have any suggestion for people who want to live, work, study here in London?
The main suggestion is to come here with the right mindset, not be lazy, work hard, try to be active, productive with the things you want to do, try to plan out your future. And London is a place where things can happen. So one who believes in things and does the right things to achieve them gets rewarded and gets exactly what they want.
Did you get what you want?
It's work in progress.
Are you happy in London?
I'd say yes, at this stage of my life, quite happy with everything, studies, work. I think obviously better things are still to come, but currently I'd say yeah. Was I happy in London before? No, because obviously when I came in I was very young and I couldn't travel much, missed many friends from back home. Now things have changed a little bit, but I guess happiness, it's part of a journey that one undertakes within.
What's your favorite place here in London?
Non ho già fatto questa. My favorite place in London is the Sky Garden.
Does this happen a lot?
In this area, yeah, it has to, because it's like where all the rich people live, I guess. I mean, the Queen lives literally down the road.
I'm back home, as you can tell. Should I live in London? My answer would be yes and no. What do I mean by that? Yes, meaning that I would live there for a few months for some work experience, opportunities and networking, which are all great things to do in London. No, meaning that I would not live there permanently. I wouldn't settle down in London because I still think London is too chaotic, too big for me, and I want to live in a place that is quiet, with a lower population number and be surrounded by nature. Something else I learned from this video is that I would not like to live in London without having a career and stability, because I think one has to make sure they can afford to live in a city like London. And if I could give a suggestion to someone who wants to live in the UK for the first time and is dreaming to live in London, would be to live somewhere cheap and quiet. After getting some work experience and after knowing how the system works in the UK, go to London. Even study-wise, it doesn't have to be London all the time. There are some great universities around the UK. Someone asked me why I don't interview locals, and the reason why is because getting in touch with foreigners is a bit easier for me, and plus I like listening to people who lived in other countries so that they can make comparisons. But I would definitely keep that in mind, and I would love to get to know locals' point of view of the UK or cities in the UK, ask them what they think about us foreigners as well. But I did ask someone whose name is Phil to be part of my interview. He makes YouTube videos, but I haven't received any reply. He has been living in London for quite a while and he has some interesting stories to tell. But again, I mean, if you know some locals or if you're a local and you want to be interviewed, then please do contact me. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my project and my analysis. I did something similar in Edinburgh. I'll link it somewhere here. If you want to know more about my project and why I'm here on YouTube, I provided a brief description of my project and it's in the description box. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and as always, see you in the next video.